Hinter uns kommt Deutschland!
Adolf Hitler terrorized the world. He built a death machine that would gut the heart of Europe. He annihilated 6 million Jews. He imprisoned and killed as many as 25 million people. So much we know. But who was he? Who was this supreme criminal? What forces twisted his mind? Adolf Hitler, Portrait of a Tyrant. To penetrate the enigma of Adolf Hitler, clues must be gathered from the bizarre and distorted way he came to interpret the world around him. From his difficult relationship with his father and mother, and his mistresses. From his obsession with Wagnerian opera. His fascination with the lurid paintings of the artist Franz Stuck. In one of Stuck's paintings, Williams College history professor Robert Waite, author of the psychopathic god Adolf Hitler, has found a striking clue to the Hitler paradox. Waite was on a research trip to Germany with his family when his teenage sons rushed in one day, excited by a discovery of what they were sure was an unknown portrait of Adolf Hitler.
It was not possible. So I told them that. And they said, well, look, will you come and look at this thing? So I said, sure, and we went and looked. And I found that the boys were right. This did indeed look like a portrait of Hitler.
It was an uncanny likeness. The famous forelock, the memorable little mustache, the large nose, the brooding eyes, and more.
But what was eerie and quite literally sent shivers up my spine when I saw it were the words in the lower left-hand corner of the picture, which said, Franz Stuck, mein erstes Ölgemälde, my first oil painting, 1889. That date caught my eye. 1889 was the year Hitler was born. The year Hitler was born.
A portrait of the grown Hitler, painted the year he was born? Professor Waite believes there's little doubt that Hitler, as an impressionable young man, saw the painting and found in it an image he could emulate. The painting is of Wotan, the king of German gods, the god of opposites, wisdom and war, creation and destruction. There is no doubt that Hitler felt a close tie to Franz Stuck's images of sin and brutality. In later years, Hitler collected Stuck's work, especially the artist's voluptuous nudes, with huge black snakes slithering through their legs. Another favorite, the Medusa head, was Stuck's vision of the legendary Greek monster whose look turned men to stone and cursed them with impotence. Those eyes, Hitler would exclaim. Those eyes. They are the eyes of my mother. The art of Franz Stuck took Hitler back to his earliest childhood memories. Hitler's father, Alois, born an illegitimate child, was a tyrannical minor government official 23 years older than Hitler's mother, Clara. Hitler's father was an unfaithful husband and a wife-beater. He was also a strict disciplinarian who believed that regular beatings were good for his son, Adolf. The boy and his mother were driven by fear into an intensely close relationship. Adolf's boyhood was so unsettling that he dropped out of school. At age 11, the Adolf Hitler, who would come to rule Europe, felt insecure and lost. A frightened boy looking for escape, searching for a role to play, a path to follow. he turned to books of German myth with their vivid pictures of heroic creation and destruction. Also among his favorites, oddly enough, were books about the American Wild West. The author of many of these American fantasies was the German Karl May, who never saw America. In Hitler's final years, he would order Nazi officers to study May's books about fighting Indians because, Hitler said, that's the way the Russians fight. In Hitler's mind, a good Nazi would fight like an American cowboy, straight from a dime novel. But in terms of early formative experience, the paintings of artist Franz Stuck and the stories of Karl May's frontier had to stand aside for the biggest influence on the young Hitler's fantasy life, composer Richard Wagner. Hitler called Wagner the source of my greatest ideas. Wagner's themes were celebrations of heroic power on the one hand and dark, destructive urges on the other. Above all, Wagner was an obsessive anti-Semite. Hitler's infatuation with Wagner began when Adolph was 12 years old and saw the opera Lohengrin for the first time. Grand operas were commonplace in Hitler's hometown and were presented as they are in this rare film. Historians believe that in Wagnerian operas, the young Hitler saw his conflicts played out. There is the beautiful blonde, who reminds Hitler of his mother. There is the lecherous brute who threatens her and represents Hitler's father. And there is Lohengrin, the pure, holy knight in shining armor, riding to the rescue in the service of the Holy Grail. He, Adolf Hitler, would be Lohengrin, a godlike role. He would be the pure-souled Messiah. And Hitler learned to quote the opera word for word, including its glorification of Germanic greatness. You hold victory in your hand. The eastern hordes shall never conquer German land. It is not surprising that 20 years later, in 1938, the grown Hitler, at the peak of his power, will select a painting of himself cast in the Lohengrin role as his official portrait for the year, a painting he had commissioned in his mind's eye so long ago at that hometown opera house. Lohengrin's great love was named Elsa. He loved her and left her for the Holy Grail. The young Hitler's first love was named Stephanie Johnston. At 17, he saw her from afar and fell obsessively in love with her. They never met. Hitler said that of all his loves, his teenage niece, Gaily Raubel, was his greatest. She called him Uncle Alfie and killed herself with his pistol. After her death, he became involved with many women. 6 of them would commit suicide or try to. Symptoms of Hitler's disturbed mind are revealed in his complex and twisted relationships with women. It's been suggested he sought out innocent girls to submit to his sadomasochistic sexual need, profoundly degrading to both partners. As early as 1930, Hitler met Eva Braun, an assistant to his official photographer and a camera buff herself. But Hitler didn't show much interest until Eva turned a gun on herself in 1932 and tried poison in 1935. And with each attempt, she became more desirable in his eyes. Professor Waite believes that Hitler was attracted to these young women like Eva Braun because each reminded him of his mother, whose picture hung over Hitler's bed like a shrine for all his adult life. And indeed, all of Hitler's twisted love affairs seemed intertwined with his deep mother love and her premature death at age 47 in 1907. She died a slow death of breast cancer. As fate would have it, her doctor, Eduard Bloch, was a Jew. Some Hitler experts believe that Hitler hated Dr. Bloch for not saving his dear mother, and that he unconsciously held the Jewish physician responsible for her suffering and death. Some believe it was from the hour of his mother's death that Hitler became obsessed with the concept of getting even, of settling the score. With whom? Slowly, Hitler's rage found a target. He directed his frenzy toward those he believed had killed his mother and wronged the German people, his beloved motherland, the Jews. Using Jews as scapegoats was not unusual in 1908. Anti-Semitism had been widespread in Europe for centuries. Even Martin Luther had written a violent tract against the Jews in the 16th century. In the 20th century, anti-Semitism hung in the air like a malevolent mist. Hitler breathed it, sucked it in. His operatic hero, Richard Wagner, detested Jews. Hitler was convinced, whether true or not, that there was Jewish blood in his own father, the father he could never forgive for brutalizing his mother, Clara, and for poisoning his own blood. After his mother's death, the 19-year-old Hitler drifted to Vienna to seek his fortune. During the preceding years, he had shown some artistic ability. His surviving paintings from those days reveal some meager talent, but not enough to get him into the Vienna Academy, Austria's most prestigious art school. He failed the entrance exams twice. In 1913, at the age of 24, Hitler moves from Austria to the Germany he will adopt as his own and transform in his image, the Germany he would call the bosom of my mother. In one of Munich's main squares on the 4th of August, 1914, by chance, a photographer captures the youthful Hitler as he cheers the beginning of World War I. Here is his chance to be a hero at last. Hitler is so anxious to fight that he rejoices in his assignment to duty in the heaviest frontline action. He is one of the very few of his rank to win the Iron Cross First Class. Wounded, Hitler misses death several times, by a few feet, even by a few inches. These close calls convince Hitler that he is a special agent of God, protected by a special providence. Near the end of World War I, Hitler tells the story of how he was caught in a poison gas attack, temporarily blinded and shocked to hear that his beloved motherland has surrendered. He has a vision. He claims to have heard miraculous voices urging him to save Germany from the Jews who had betrayed her. In Hitler's disturbed mind, it was not the Allied armies who had brought Germany to abject defeat. He said it was the Jews who had stabbed Germany in the back. The mad vision convinced Hitler he must enter politics. Vengeance against the Jews became his mission. It is 1919. Hitler is 30, and he boasts that Jesus Christ was the same age when he began his ministry. The time is right. The youthful Hitler had chosen a perfect time for proclaiming his politics. 1919 was a political vacuum. Rival mobs fought for control of the streets. It was a time of revolutionary upheaval by communists and coffeehouse anarchists on the left, and on the right by roving bands of discharged soldiers out to restore law and order by throwing out what they called the Bolshevik Jewish traitors. This is the turbulent stage onto which Hitler strides. His first step is to join the German Workers' Party, a party with only a handful of members and $2 in the treasury. The members argue about spending their funds for 3 rubber stamps. Such is the gloomy state of affairs when Adolf Hitler, in what he later calls the greatest decision of my life, joins the party. Hitler will transform this handful of malcontents into the mighty Nazi Party, before which the world will tremble. He will do it by perfecting a newly discovered gift. This gift was his miraculous ability to sway masses with the power of speech. Depressed and weakened, they flocked to hear the hypnotic speaker with the flashing eyes. and the simple answers.
In stolzer Ergebenheit, diesem Deutschland Dienst tut, wird heute Deutschland in stolzer Freude seine Söhne in euch marschieren sehen.
He told the Germans what they wanted to hear. It was the Jews who betrayed you. You need a strong leader to destroy the Jews, to lead you back to the greatness that was yours in the past, the greatness you deserve as the master race. The German people, humiliated and beaten, were promised greatness. They believed. Single-handedly, Hitler built the party. From a few hundred, his audiences grew to thousands, drawn by his message and his charisma. Hitler was the party. His love for Wagnerian opera served him well. He designed the Nazi party uniform and its flag with the swastika, a form of cross, a twisted cross, a perversion of Knight Lohengrin's cross. For Wagner's hero was still very much on Hitler's mind. It was just the time for a knight in shining armor. The Great Depression was everywhere, with its massive unemployment and misery. The mob demanded a radical solution. They saw Hitler as their savior. His paranoia sweeps the nation. Hitler is the cure for the motherland's cancer. January 1933. Hitler is named Germany's chancellor. His followers celebrate with a giant torchlight parade. That same year Hitler took power, 1933, the Nazis opened their first concentration camp. Only a few undesirables behind barbed wire. No gas chambers at first, not yet. Nothing to worry about, so they said. Germany had her savior. Hitler promised a new kingdom on earth. His alone would be the power and the glory. Hitler told the masses that if he were to fail in his mission, you should then crucify him. Hitler saw himself as a god, and as a god who could do no wrong.
Hitler is Germany! Germany is Hitler! Hitler! Sieg! Sieg!
There was even a Nazi version of the Lord's Prayer. Adolph Hitler, you are our great leader. Thy name makes the enemy tremble. Thy Third Reich comes. Thy will alone is law upon earth. Order us by thy leadership, for we will obey to the end, even with our lives. We praise thee. Heil Hitler. As the masses hailed him, their Messiah was leading them to war. 1938, Hitler marches into Austria, occupies a third of Czechoslovakia. 1939, he unleashes lightning war, blitzkrieg, on Poland. In 1940, Nazis invade the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. Hitler enters Paris. No challenge appears too great. Hitler keeps his war machine rolling. It seems as if nothing can stop him now. But on June 22nd, 1941, Adolf Hitler attacks to the east, attacks Russia, and seals his own doom. Hitler promises that Russian resistance will be crushed before winter. So Hitler believed. So Germany believed. But the Russians fight the panzers to a standstill outside Moscow. The snows fall, and temperatures drop to 30 degrees below zero. By December, the master race is caught in the blizzards on the Eastern Front. The Russians counterattack. The tide of war has turned. Still, Hitler insists to the world that he will triumph. The world could not know that deep within his mind, Hitler was turning away from his image of himself as savior and back to the image as dark destroyer. In his classic study of the mind of Adolf Hitler, first prepared in secret for the U.S. government during World War II, psychoanalyst Walter Langner predicted what Hitler would do next. Each defeat will shake Hitler's confidence and limit the opportunities for Hitler to prove his own greatness to himself. Hitler will probably try to compensate for his vulnerability by continually stressing his brutality and ruthlessness. For only in this way can he prove to himself that he is not a weakling. And so it came to pass. Brutality increased with defeat. Hitler cannot destroy Russia or England or the United States, yet he must destroy. So he turns his full rage on the Jews. The Jews have haunted him since his youth. Now he will get even. He will solve the problem once and for all. By 1942, Hitler screams over and over, "Ich will die Juden ausrotten." I will annihilate the Jews. The final solution. The first concentration camp is more than 10 years old, but only now are the huge death camps erected. Only now are the gas chambers installed, the ovens put in place, the ovens that make mass killing so efficient. Only now do Hitler's acts move into the realm of the unthinkable. The gas chambers are full, the ovens burn, the motherland is invaded from east and west. On July 20th, Hitler's own generals try to kill him with a bomb. They fail, and Hitler's fury spills over onto the German people themselves. Their Messiah has become their destroyer. Hitler announces he must attain immortality, even if the whole German nation perishes in the process. Germany is not worthy of me. Let her perish. Those were his words. It was a scenario right out of a Wagnerian opera. At the end, Hitler orders the destruction of the German nation itself. Not just weapons, hospitals, churches, schools, everything. Professor Robert Waite, who has called Hitler the psychopathic god, believes that this orgy of destruction was consistent with Hitler's split view of the world.
He had to have it, as he so often said, alles oder nichts, everything or nothing. He would be the all-conquering hero, or there would be complete defeat. You couldn't have it any other way but the extremes. And if he could not be, at the end, the greatest conqueror of history, he would be history's most memorable destroyer.
On April 30th, 1945, Hitler and his new wife, Eva Braun, committed suicide in a joint pact. Death was their honeymoon. In his madness, Hitler saw death as victory. To him, total destruction was exhilarating. He saw it as the way to immortality. His name would live forever. And in this he was right. Hitler's name will live forever in infamy. Adolf Hitler, Portrait of a Tyrant.